It feels great because I think right from the time I started theatre, this was something that I wanted to be a part of. There was a place that I would see and so much of fanfare being around it. And it felt really great to be contacted by the Bengaluru Theatre Festival and to be asked to perform this play at the festival this year. It sort of came around like a full circle for me. It was a play that was primarily conceived of to be performed. It started with a question to say, can we take a play to any sort of a space and perform it? With the kind of city Bangalore has become, there are amazing theatre spaces, but there's so much happening around the city, and with the way the city is growing and with the way the city is also stuck in the way it's growing. We were finding it increasingly that audiences were not able to make it to a theatre space or didn't want to travel across the city. There has been a theatre movement of sorts which is going back to the basics to say, let's take the plays to the people rather than call people to a certain venue to do the play. So we started off this, for us this play was supposed to be a very light, very agile production that we can take it to any sort of place and perform, which meant that we tried it out at libraries, cafes, conference rooms, homes, a noisy pub, anywhere and everywhere, at a golf club. It could be performed anywhere, and also it's designed very much in bite-sized pieces. There are 5 stories, short stories, that revolve around urban life in Bangalore. It is not restricted only to Bangalore. It could be an Indian metro, but largely because I think I grew up in Bangalore and I've been in Bangalore, so the stories sort of end up reflecting Bangalore itself. The play was written in pieces, I think, as short plays over a period of time, I think a year or so, at different times. They weren't meant to be put together and performed. They were just individual stories of 10, 12 minutes tops. We just happened to, the group that I'm part of, that I co-founded, called Dahato. We've been around now enough, and so most of the content comes from me. So these were stories that I'd just written, and we happened to read them together, and they sort of fell in place. They were written across different times, and they just fell together neatly in place for this production.
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to it, because usually what happens is that when it's the good thing about it being a vignette of stories is that there's usually something that really strikes a chord with everyone in the audience. That's usually what I've seen how it works. And there are stories that stand out oddly also for people, and that I like that conversation. I like the fact that it almost seems like a book of stories, and that people are getting to see it. And usually when it comes with stories, I'm really looking forward to the conversations that we can start off, because it seems like there are segments of stories, and therefore in 12 minutes it's a complete story told, and that's about it. There's no start, premise, setting, a lot of building, there's no exposition. So it straight away goes to a point, a plot, an incident, and stops there. I think my memories of Deccan Herald coincides very much to my growing up in Bangalore. So a lot of it connects straight back to growing up in Bangalore across the years and what I've seen change. A lot of the stories depict that. A lot of the stories also depict a contrast between the Bangalore I knew of and the Bangalore that I'm suddenly finding myself in. Not that that's a good or a bad thing, but there is a thing to it. And I thought this play, even when Sandbox contacted us about it, I felt that this play sort of does that, because it's as flexible as Bangalore is actually. That's usually a tricky question. I find it I find it that the content that we as a group develop usually are things that are not so much historically significant as they are things that we're dealing with and struggling with or laughing over today. So usually that's what it is, and this my style of writing also is very conversational, which I probably wouldn't oppose your point of view straight away. Rather than I'll sort of joke around the point till I finish saying what I have to say, and I would love to hear saying, oh that's what you have to say. I feel that through humor there's a lot more conversation that can happen rather than me just stating my point and saying now you state yours. When we start to really argue it or hammer it in, it's a difficult process, and in the climate and the space that we are in as a country as well, I think what we are lacking is a sense of humor about things, about our own opinions. I want to be able to say this is what I feel and make fun of my own opinions so that you have an opening to converse with me. I think humor does that very importantly. It doesn't antagonize anyone who's viewing. I'm not coming across as saying this is what I think is serious. What I'm saying has a lot of gravity, therefore listen to me, is completely putting off, especially at a time when our attention spans are so less. It's very characteristic of how we have evolved as a people, as consumers, as just like very rabid consumers of stories and things and experiences. If something doesn't get us in 10 minutes, we take it for granted that it probably never will. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's... is it in trend? Yeah. I think it's in trend because we are struggling with so much to listen to each other. I need to pepper my conversations with jokes, short. Yes. Yeah, I need to make it quicker. I need to have something else. News has to become tweet-sized news, and so many of these things that we have to struggle with. I don't know. There are web series, there's that, there's movies, there's books, and there's this. There's so much vying for our attention. And as a theatre maker in Bangalore, like it's something that we struggle with as well. Why should someone in Bangalore come to watch our play today, for example? When there is stand-up, there's that, there's traffic, there's work, there's family, there's so much to do, there's just shortage of time. I think that's why it's become a trend to get to you as soon as possible. Try cutting out the extra frills and saying this is what I have to say, I hope you like it. Connecting point. Considering that they're separate stories, I think they're people you definitely have met, all of them. And I'm very confident because that's where they came from. I like the mix that it has always brought. I like the scale that it comes with. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that it's inherently Bangalore. I think a lot of it is, if it becomes a model across cities, there's a danger of it just becoming homogenized, I feel. Mm-hmm. The fact that Deccan Herald has always been, for me at least, has inherently stood for something that's Bangalore and something that's localized, which means that I get to see work that has developed here and therefore carries some sort of texture or taste from here. I think is important, which is what theatre or any sort of community arts was supposed to be. It was supposed to be inherent to a community, to a region. The moment it becomes a model that can be replicated across it, there's sort of a homogenization which happens, which I think doesn't. It's probably something that I've really...
Okay.
I think a lot of, with theatre as well, I think a lot of the youth is online. They're doing things in the city, they're heading out and watching a lot more plays. Even though there's a lot more for them to do, they are still watching plays a lot. Each time we see faces that are new. I think the conversation presently, I would say in the last 2 years maybe, mm-hmm. I think there's a lot more conversation that's happening, even though it's polarizing conversations. And the fact that the youth is taking part in it means that theatre will thrive, and therefore something that's not general, that's something that's a lot more focused at a very city level or a regional level or a state level, will still continue to spark that conversations. Theatre and Deccan Herald for me somehow that sort of a mix seems very accessible to me. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking at a national level or something that I can't understand. It's very local, it's very here. And just that, it seems very homely.
Okay.
I think that's why it will connect.
Okay.
I think as anyone who creates written work especially, it's isolating in nature as a writer, which is why I think the world over playwrights are sort of like a dying breed also. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. A lot of work is happening in collaboration. I find it most difficult to be able to write, and I think I've also checked with other writers of books, of plays, poets, that the hardest part is to finish writing what you're doing and then come back to it and say, okay, this is something that I want to develop or carry forward. There's always a demon in the head that wants to dismiss things quickly enough and want to keep perennially staying in this one loop of rewriting. It's luckily because I work with a group that's very open to content that I write, I'm able to take that and say, let's read. And the act of watching other people, actors, sit down and read your work automatically cuts out the voice in your head and say, okay, this is really bad stuff. I need to work on this, and this is not so bad. Once I get there, I'm good. Okay. It's when I'm writing when I'm writing by myself that it's very isolating. Writing. Writing. I think theatre otherwise, in both the other disciplines, both the other portfolios, it's very collaborative in nature. There is support that you can look forward to. You can work together. There are that many more talented, creative heads and minds doing it. Of course, there are roles. Like for example, as a director, my job is to make sure there is balance, there's storytelling that's moving forward. But as a writer, you're doing all of these things alone, and you're trying to shut down and say, don't edit right now, or you're trying to say, this is bad. As both as an actor or as a director, there are other minds and energies to play off from, so that it seems less lonely. Arundhati Nag's play, definitely.
Mother's
And The Woman in Me. I think I was in college, I was in college just growing up when Pawan Kumar was really prolific in theatre. And I've just heard of him from people. It was nice to see that he just got back to revisiting his works in theatre. And then he's doing this play. This is something that I've really looked forward to watching.